For anyone really deep in digital security, public key infrastructure, PKI, well, it's this fundamental pillar we probably take for granted a lot of the time. It's sort of the silent force verifying trust online, from that little padlock icon you see in your browser to the apps on your phone. But what many folks don't realize is just how dramatically this really foundational tech is evolving. I mean, we're talking about a massive ongoing transformation. It's moving PKI far beyond just, people in web browsers.
It is fascinating. PKI has really moved way beyond its origins, and it's now right at the epicenter of this profound shift. It's being driven by, well, three big forces happening all at once. This huge explosion of non-human endpoints like devices and sensors, the, frankly, imminent threat of quantum computing, and a really strategic convergence with identity and access management.
So today, we're taking a deep dive into how PKI is evolving. We'll look at its core ideas, sure, but also how it's pushing into totally new areas like the Internet of Things, even AI. And yeah, that existential threat from quantum computers, plus how it's sort of merging with other critical security disciplines. Our goal really is to give you a shortcut to understanding why PKI isn't just some technical detail anymore. It's becoming a board-level concern, integral to business continuity and, honestly, future innovation.
Exactly. We've pulled insights from some pretty comprehensive reports and research, trying to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge, really, to give you a clear strategic framework for getting your head around this evolution.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. What exactly is PKI? It sounds complicated maybe, but at its heart, it's basically a system for trust, right? Helping parties who've never met actually verify each other online.
Precisely. And the core concept, it relies on something called asymmetric cryptography. So you have two keys mathematically linked, a public key, which, you can share widely, and a private key, which you absolutely keep secret. This pair does three vital things. Confidentiality, that's encryption, so only the right person can read it. Integrity, using digital signatures to show if something's been tampered with. And authenticity, those same signatures prove who sent it. Think of the certificate authority of the CA as sort of like a digital passport office. It vouches for someone or something by digitally signing their certificate. And your browser, well, it trusts a website certificate because it checks this whole chain of trust. It goes from the website cert up through maybe some intermediate CAs, all the way to a root CA that your browser already trusts. It's this hierarchy, that lets PKI scale globally.
Right, so the theory is solid, but it's the operational bits where it really matters in practice, isn't it? What are those critical pieces that make PKI actually reliable day to day?
Yeah, good point. Two things are absolutely non-negotiable here. First, HSM's hardware security modules. These are like dedicated physical boxes that safeguard the private keys, especially the really important CA keys. They're tamper-resistant. I mean, think about it. If a CA's private key got stolen, an attacker could issue fake certificates for anything, Google, your bank. It would completely break the trust model, so HSMs prevent that. Often, the supercritical root CA keys are kept offline entirely inside these HSMs. Second is CLM certificate lifecycle management. Because certificates don't last forever, right? They have a finite lifespan. So CLM covers discovering them, issuing new ones, renewing them before they expire, and importantly, revoking them if they get compromised. Trying to do this manually, especially when you have thousands or millions of certificates, it's just incredibly risky. We've seen it lead to, catastrophic service outages when a key cert expires, or it creates these windows of opportunity for attackers if bad certs aren't revoked fast enough.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine.
I've personally seen companies grind to a halt, like completely stopped, because one single forgotten certificate expired. It can hit everything, internal tools, public websites. So a mature CLM strategy, it has to be automated, discovery, renewal, all of it.
It really is fascinating how much PKI just works silently in the background. You probably use it dozens of times every single day and don't even think about it.
Yeah.
What are some of those common everyday applications?
Well, the most visible one for sure is TLS transport layer security. That's the tech behind HTTPS, the padlock in your browser. When you go to a secure website, your browser does this TLS handshake, checks the site certificate. That's what secures your online shopping, your sensitive data, and stops those man-in-the-middle attacks.
Right. The basics we kind of expect now.
Exactly. And there's SEM, Secure Multipurpose Internet Mail Extensions, that adds trust to email. Digital signatures confirm who sent it and that the message hasn't changed, plus encryption for end-to-end confidentiality. And document and code signing. This gives you legally binding digital signatures on documents. And really crucially now, it verifies where software came from and that it's intact. This last one is absolutely essential for what we call software supply chain security, making sure that app you just downloaded is legit and hasn't been messed with. And, connecting this to the bigger picture, that old distinction between like public PKI for websites and private PKI for internal stuff, it's really blurring fast. This is mostly driven by zero trust architecture, which basically says you have to explicitly verify every connection, internal or external, doesn't matter. And this shift, it's forcing companies to bring their PKI strategy and tools together.
So the takeaway here isn't just, oh, PKI is important. It's that if it fails, it's not just an IT glitch. It could be an economic disaster, maybe even a national security issue, right? Like imagine a global supply chain seizing up because one cert expired, or government services failing because digital IDs can't be checked. It really bumps PKI up to being a critical business continuity thing.
Absolutely. It's table stakes now.
Right. So while those traditional uses are still vital, totally, the real explosion, the strategic importance of PKI today, it seems to be in securing the Internet of Everything. Where are the biggest shifts happening there?
Yeah, the biggest shift, hands down, is towards securing non-human identities. Let's start with IoT, the Internet of Things. I mean, you're talking thousands, potentially millions of devices, often out in the field, physically insecure maybe, limited processing power, no keyboard or screen, passwords, just not going to work. Not secure, not feasible. So PKI offers the solution. Give every single device a unique, cryptographically verifiable identity. This sets up a root of trust. It allows for mutual authentication. The device checks the network checks the device. It secures data flying back and forth. It authenticates firmware updates, which is huge for patching vulnerabilities. And they use clever stuff too, like lightweight algorithms, ECC elliptic curve cryptography, and automated enrollment protocols like EST and SCEP to handle this massive scale efficiently.
Okay, that makes sense for devices. What about the software side? You mentioned the supply chain earlier.
Right, fortifying the software supply chain. This is a huge focus in DevSecOps now. The challenge is the complexity, right? Modern software uses tons of open source bits, third-party components. It creates these huge attack surfaces. We saw the damage with SolarWinds, for instance. That was a catalyst.
Definitely.
So PKI helps integrate security right into the development lifecycle. We call it shifting security left, authenticating the developers, the build systems, the tools in the CI/CD pipeline, the continuous integration delivery process. So as code gets built and pushed out, certificates are automatically issued, renewed, maybe revoked. It bakes security right in. Code signing is vital here, proving where it came from and that it's intact. But what's really cutting edge now are cryptographic attestations for SBOM software bills of materials.
MILMs, right. Heard a lot about those.
Yeah, so a signed SBOM becomes this tamper-proof record of every component in a piece of software. Super important for vulnerability scanning and increasingly for regulatory compliance. Like the U.S. executive order on cybersecurity really pushed this. Projects like Sigstore are making this easier to do.
Okay, devices, software. What about AI? That seems like a whole new frontier for trust.
It really is. Establishing trust in autonomous systems, especially AI agents. Think about it. AI agents acting on their own, accessing sensitive data, talking to other systems. If they're not authenticated, the risk is enormous. PKI addresses this by basically treating each AI agent like a machine identity. They get their own unique digital certificates. This allows secure agent-to-agent, or A2A, communication using mutual TLS where both agents verify each other. It also gives you provenance and accountability. If an AI agent takes an action, it can be digitally signed, creating a non-reputable audit trail. You know which agent did what. It even helps with trusted discovery, finding other trusted agents. There are emerging frameworks like Agent Name Service, kind of like DNS for agents, where they register with their public certificates.
That's astonishing to think about, really. The whole game for PKI has shifted, hasn't it? From managing, I don't know, thousands of certificates for people to potentially managing millions, maybe billions of these short-lived automated machine identities. It really is forcing a fundamental rethink for the whole industry.
Absolutely. If you connect it to the bigger picture, PKI is moving from being primarily about confidentiality, keeping secrets, to being the foundational tech for ensuring authenticity, integrity, and provenance. Especially in this age of automation and AI, it's kind of profound, isn't it? A technology originally built for humans trusting websites is now figuring out how machines can trust other machines, often with no human even involved.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Okay, so As if that massive scale transformation wasn't enough of a headache, there's this existential threat looming over it all,
Mhm.
quantum computing. And you said it's not some, far off sci-fi problem.
No, it's definitely not. That's absolutely right. See, our current public key algorithms, RSA, ECC, Diffie-Hellman, they work because they rely on math problems that are just too hard for today's computers, classical computers, to solve quickly. But Peter Shor's algorithm, if you run it on a powerful enough quantum computer, what we call a cryptographically relevant quantum computer or CRQC, it could potentially break these algorithms, not in centuries, but maybe hours or days.
Wow.
And this leads straight to the harvest now, decrypt later threat, or HNDL. Adversaries right now are likely storing encrypted data they can't read today. Think sensitive government secrets, long-term financial data, maybe your health records.
Something needs to stay secret for decades.
Exactly. Knowing that down the road, once they have a CRQC, they can decrypt it. So this makes it a present-day risk for any data that has a long shelf life. It's worth mentioning, though, that symmetric algorithms like AES encryption, they're generally more resilient, will likely just need to double the key lengths, say go from AES 128 to AES 256 to keep them secure against quantum attacks.
Okay, that's a pretty sobering thought. The idea of everything being retroactively decrypted. So what's being done? Thankfully, there's a global effort to sort this out, right?
Indeed, there is. NIST, the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, they kicked off a big post-quantum cryptography or PQC standardization competition way back in 2016. They just finalized and published the first batch of standard algorithms in August 2024. So it's happening now. NIST had settled on two main algorithms, both based on lattice-based math, really complex puzzles, even for quantum computers. There's ML-Chem for encryption and establishing keys, and ML-DSA for digital signatures. And wisely, they also included SLH-DSA, which is a hash-based signature algorithm. It's kind of a backup, provides some algorithmic diversity, which is good. And NIST is still looking at other candidates, like HQC, for possible future standards.
So this isn't just like swapping out software. It sounds like a massive, maybe multi-decade undertaking, a great migration for our entire digital world. What are the biggest hurdles here? This sounds incredibly complex.
Oh, it is a monumental task. This PQC migration, it's like the ultimate stress test for what we call crypto agility, how easily an organization can actually swap out its cryptographic algorithms. If you don't have automated inventories of all your crypto assets where everything is used, you're in deep trouble already. We're facing huge challenges, things like legacy system incompatibility, older hardware, older software just wasn't built for this kind of swap out. There are performance issues too. These new PQC algorithms often have larger keys or signatures. For instance, some ML-Chem messages and TLS handshakes might actually be bigger than standard network packets. That could mean fundamental network redesigns for some systems. Yeah, and there's a big knowledge and skills gap. Not enough people understand PQC yet. Plus, the cost is enormous. Billions are being invested. The U.S. federal government alone is looking at over $7 billion by 2035. And don't forget supply chain risk. Everyone depends on their vendors updating their products, right? So your migration timeline is tied to theirs. The common strategy to try and manage all this is a hybrid approach. So protocols like TLS will likely run both classical algorithms like ACC and new PQC algorithms like ML-Chem side by side for a while. This gives you backward compatibility and, honestly, it's a hedge. A bet against finding some unexpected flaw in these brand new PQC algorithms down the line.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just imagining your entire digital life, bank records, emails, everything, suddenly exposed years later.
Yeah.
That really drives home why this isn't theoretical. It's a clear and present danger, especially for data that needs to last. Okay, so beyond the quantum threat, which is huge, and that explosion of machine identities, the actual management of PKI is also going through a massive shift, you said. It's not just about certificates anymore.
No, not at all. Because the sheer volume, we talked about thousands of servers, millions of IoT devices, it just makes manual management totally obsolete and dangerous. You simply can't keep up. So the automation isn't just nice, it's basically mandated now. We see protocols like ACME, that's what Let's Encrypt uses for web servers, becoming standard. And things like SCP and EST are used for network gear, mobile devices, IoT, and the really advanced organizations. They're moving towards PKI as code, treating their certificate infrastructure just like software. They integrate their CLM platforms using APIs right into their development pipelines, their CI/CD pipelines, using tools like HashiCorp Vault or Terraform. This whole trend also fuels the rise of PKI as a service, PKIS. Companies are outsourcing the complexity of running all that CI infrastructure and automation to specialized cloud providers.
Huh. That sounds like a fundamental change for security teams. And what's even more interesting, maybe, is you mentioned these two worlds colliding, PKI and IAM, identity and access management. They used to be pretty separate, but now they're merging.
Exactly. And the driving force behind that convergence is zero trust. That core principle, never trust, always verify. Every single connection, every entity, human, machine, internal, external, has to be authenticated and authorized. Every single time. So PIS-AI provides the strong verifiable identity. It answers the question, who or what are you, and can you prove it cryptographically? Then IAM provides the real-time access decision, okay, I know who you are, now what are you actually allowed to do right now under these conditions? These two functions, they're becoming inseparable, they're merging into this unified identity fabric or maybe trust management discipline, and it applies to everything, people, devices, software, AI, across these really distributed, complex environments we have now.
Okay, so what's the practical impact then? This convergence isn't just like good security hygiene. It sounds like it's becoming a legal thing too.
Absolutely. We're seeing some powerful regulatory forces pushing this. Look at the EU's IIS 2.0 regulation. It creates this whole legal framework for digital identities across Europe. It gives qualified electronic signatures, or QES, which rely heavily on PKI, the same legal validity as a handwritten signature everywhere in the EU. That's a huge driver for PKI adoption, especially for national digital ID schemes.
Wow, yeah.
And then you have GDPR, the big data privacy regulation. It doesn't explicitly say you must use PKI, but its requirements for ensuring the integrity and confidentiality of personal data and using appropriate technical and organizational measures. Well, that implicitly pushes organizations towards strong encryption and authentication, which is exactly what PKI delivers. So this raises a really important question, right? How are organizations actually going to manage digital trust in this new world, converged, highly regulated, massive scale? The implications are pretty clear. PKI is now a strategic business decision way beyond just the IT department.
Okay, so the market itself for PKI must be fascinating. You mentioned it's growing fast, like $4.7 billion in 2024, projected to over $10 billion by 2028. What does that competitive landscape actually look like?
Yeah, it's definitely dynamic. If you look at the core trust models, you've got PKI's centralized hierarchical chain of trust, super scalable, automatable, essential for the global internet. Then, as an alternative, you have PGP, pretty good privacy with its decentralized web of trust. Here, individuals sign each other's keys. There's no central authority. It's resilient if one entity fails, but it gets socially complex and really doesn't scale for like fast, high-volume transactions. Still popular in privacy-focused circles, though.
Right, but then you also have these huge platform players building their own walled gardens, essentially challenging that open standard approach.
Exactly. That's where you see something like Microsoft Purview fitting in. Their message encryption, 08me, handles email encryption right inside Microsoft 365. It's super seamless if you're in that ecosystem. External folks use a web portal. Similarly, their information protection, MPIP, classifies and protects data with encryption that travels with the file, but again, it relies heavily on Microsoft's cloud services. Now, the upside is ease of use and deep integration if you're already a Microsoft shop, but the critique is, well, it comes at the cost of interoperability and creates a form of vendor lock-in. It kind of fragments that universal trust model that OpenPKI aimed for.
Yeah, a classic tech trade-off. And this sounds like the commercial PKI market itself got completely shaken up by the free automated guys, right?
Oh, absolutely. The big disruptor was Let's Encrypt, no question, launched in 2015. They offered free domain-validated DV SSL TLS certificates, basic website certs, but the revolutionary part was mandating automation via the ACME protocol and making certs short-lived, only 90 days. This basically commoditized those basic DV certificates overnight.
So how did the established commercial CAs react?
They had to pivot. They moved up the value chain big time. So now you see players like DigiCert really focusing on large enterprises, Fortune 500s, big banks. They offer high assurance certificates, OVEV, organizing validated, extended validation, and these comprehensive management platforms like their Cert Central. Sectigo, which used to be Komodo, they're still the largest commercial CA by volume, probably. They have a really broad offering, from cheap DVs up to enterprise stuff. And then GlobalSign, another reputable one, focusing heavily on enterprise needs, automation, and those high-volume use cases like IoT and DevOps we talked about. So the market fundamentally shifted. It's not really about selling individual certificate files anymore. It's about selling trust management, governance, automation, and compliance as a comprehensive service.
Got it. So choosing your CA provider has really become a strategic business decision now. You have to align it with your organization's risk appetite, how mature your operations are, all that. Wow. What a deep dive into the world of PKI. It's crystal clear. This isn't the static, behind-the-scenes tech it might have seemed like.
Yeah.
It's incredibly dynamic, constantly evolving, and really at the absolute core of how we build trust in this increasingly automated and connected world.
Yeah, if you connect it all together, PKI is really transforming from that sort of traditional utility into a much more comprehensive digital trust platform. The core challenge has completely flipped, hasn't it? It's now about managing these huge, constantly changing inventories of short-lived certificates for machines, for software components, for AI agents, and that makes automation not just helpful, but an absolute necessity.
And yeah, we absolutely cannot forget the quantum imperative. With NIST's new standards finally out, the clock has officially started ticking on this global migration. It's going to define cybersecurity for decades, really. It demands unprecedented planning and a real commitment to genuine crypto agility.
Which raises that important question for basically every organization listening. As the old network perimeter just dissolves, PCI isn't some separate silo anymore. It's completely woven into the fabric of identity and access management. It's becoming the critical cryptographically assured identity layer that all those zero trust access decisions have to be built on.
So what does this all mean for you listening in? As we head towards this future that's going to be dominated by AI agents, autonomous systems, where every single action needs to be verifiable, every interaction needs to be trusted, PKI is that foundational layer. The organizations that are going to thrive, they'll be the ones that see PKI not just as some static utility, but as this dynamic foundational layer, the layer upon which all future digital trust has to be built. And, that thought leaves me with a pretty powerful question for you to maybe mull over. In a world where machines are increasingly acting for us on our behalf, how does the very definition of trust itself evolve? And what role will PKI play in making sure that trust is never, ever broken?